Greetings, Skill Incarnate bringing you all the latest indie gaming goodness. Welcome back as we look at another indie game. This time we're checking out Blade of Darkness, developed by Rebel Axe Studios and published by SNEG. This game was originally released 20 years ago as Severance in Australia, and I have very fond childhood memories of this game. It was a dark action fantasy RPG in a time when there wasn't many of these games, and it introduced a lot of really clever ideas. In fact, I would say this game was a Souls-like before Souls-likes were a thing. Now, some of the ideas didn't land very well, the game had very clunky controls and the graphics haven't aged very well, but it is still a very important piece of gaming history in my opinion. We're going to play the first part of the campaign, and I'm going to let you know what my thoughts are. Let's check out Blade of Darkness.
The steps of Karakum have faded into the distance behind you, leaving only memories. These days of journey across the ancient tribal grounds have been like a dream. But now, before your very eyes, Kashgar, the mythical homeland of your ancestors. What mysteries, what fate awaits you in the shadows of its sacred monoliths?
Blade of Darkness has 4 different character classes. You've got the knight who uses a sword and shield. You've got an archer or Valkyrie who uses the bow. You've got a dwarf who uses axes and is close to the ground. But my personal favourite and the class we're playing for this video is the barbarian. Now the barbarian, he doesn't have any special armour, he doesn't have a shield. All he has is a great big weapon, and he is going to use it with great efficiency. We need to make sure that we're taking advantage of the extra range and the power our weapons use and adopt a more precision type of attack. Go for limbs. Go for attacks that are going to end these battles quickly. Otherwise we're going to get messed up. Luckily, because of the range of our weapon, we can often take off arms and heads, doing great amounts of damage and ending battles quickly, at least until we get to some of the more tougher enemies. Now, health in the game is pretty rare, and in the early game you're going to be relying on level ups to replenish your health. Or in my case, I'm trying to avoid taking damage altogether. Very nice. Now, enemies will sometimes drop potions, but you can only carry a few large potions at a time. So you want to try and keep your healing items and stow them away for when you need them, and to try and avoid damage as much as you can, and in most cases try and avoid it altogether. Early in the game these guys aren't too much of a challenge, but we're very quickly going to meet some of the more dangerous enemies in the game. And the game has a full dismemberment system. Enemies can cut off arms and heads, but you can do the same. As you can see, I just took his leg off at the knee. Now, when this game came out, it was definitely a very interesting discussion with the censors. They weren't happy with the game that had gallons of blood, dismemberment, very visceral combat. Now, nowadays this is pretty tame, but back when the game first came out, it was quite controversial. Now, we can break through enemy shields, but I like to get around them where I can. We cut his arm off, and I'm going to take his weapon as well. Now, the one thing about weapons that you need to know about in Severance is that the weapons are based on character classes. Some character classes can use weapons more effectively than others, and while technically you can use every weapon, you probably shouldn't. The other thing that we have to be aware of is that enemies are weak against certain types of damage. There's cutting damage and there's blunt damage. There's also ranged weapons that are extremely powerful, and you can also get some magical weapons too. Now I'm taking a fair bit of damage here, so I want to try and avoid taking any more. Oh, there we go, got my level up. Would have been in a bit of trouble there because I took a fair bit of damage. Now, the early game you're going to struggle a bit because you, at level 1, you just take a hell of a lot of damage. You don't do a lot. And with every level up we get, our defense increases, our damage increases, and more importantly, our maximum life increases. Now we have 180 HP. So the goal in most combat, just like Dark Souls, is to wait for an opening. There we go. And the more practice you get, the better you'll get in the game. You have to get very good very fast because health is pretty hard to find. You can't carry much health with you. Health potions are rare. Now enemies, any attack with like a red trail behind it is going to do extra damage. So let's just stay back, wait for our opportunity, and bam, we took his head off. Now we're talking. Now we've been having it pretty easy so far, but we're about to meet one of the tougher enemies, an ogre. Or an orc. Very nice. So the game is often, it's all about, it's almost like a dance. You counter, you attack, you counter, you bait enemies out, and a lot of these techniques are ones that, you know, Dark Souls players are going to be familiar with. We've got one of these tougher enemies, we're going to have to... Oh, we're going to get out of here, he's going to... Let's back up a bit, get ourselves some space. Oh, very nice. Powerfully done. We took a few hits, but he was one of the tougher enemies, and we effortlessly took him out. Now, I am going to drink that potion, because we took a bit of damage. Enemies can carry potions too, and if you kill an enemy successfully, and you prevent them from being able to drink the potion, which was why I attacked a bit more aggressively, you can claim it for yourself, because if the enemy drinks a potion, you'll end up having to fight them a second time with their health full. There we go, we're getting a little bit better at this. I'm still taking some hits, so I need to play a little bit more defensively. Don't need that yet. Health is very rare in this game, so you want to only really use it when you absolutely have to. We're going to try and hang on to our healing items, because we may need to backtrack to get through here. Now we're up against some zombies, because the game, of course, being a fantasy or a dark fantasy game, has the undead. But these guys actually aren't too tough. I found they've only really got one dangerous attack, which is their acid spitting attack. But if you know your way around the sword and you've got a cutting weapon, you can take their arms off. You can just decapitate them, just like I have. They're often cannon fodder. They're an excellent way to get a bit of experience. Later on you'll meet some more dangerous ones. There's vampires in the game. There's also demons. These guys they're just a practice run right now. As you can see, enemies can be completely dismembered. You can cut off arms, you can cut off hands, legs, and you often should, because removing enemy limbs not only makes them unable to carry weapons, in some cases it makes them harmless. So we're getting a little bit of a practice run for some of the later enemies. There we go. Now you notice that I'm using different types of swings, and the game has a full combo system. You can use different types of swings with the keyboard, the direction of your sword. You can use different attacks, and some of them are more effective than others. You want to learn how to use the different attacks. Targeting different types of the body is very effective against certain types of enemies. Enemies with shields, low swings, you can aim over or under their shield, aim around it. Enemies like this, very, very weak against headshots and limb shots. So to worry too, that with that is the poison attack. It's quite nasty. Now, enemies can infight as well, and if they're silly enough to fight each other, we're going to let them. Now, we use one of our own attacks. We can use a rage attack, like so, and special attacks will do a ton of damage, but they also expend your stamina. So it's a bit of a risk-reward system. You need to make sure that you're not burning through all of your stamina. When you get to higher levels and your stamina bar starts to get a bit more beefy, you can experiment a bit more, but in the early game you want to try and keep it simple. Excellent. We've got our first healing potion, and this is going to be very, very useful. We only get a few of them, and we want to try and hang on to them in the early game when the enemies are a bit easier. We can carry up to 4 minor healing potions, and we can carry a couple of major potions and a 1 full healing potion. Now we're nearly at another level up. See if we can take out a couple more enemies. Now, each of the openings in the game for the different characters starts in a different area of the kingdom. The knight begins the game imprisoned in a dungeon awaiting execution, for example. And some of the early levels are easier or harder. Ironically, the first level for the barbarian seems to be a bit easier than the others. And that's just simply because he has a... oh, very nice. We've got a... This is a special axe. We're going to take that. Another level up. Now, you are going to be battling with the controls most of the time. And I've found, ironically, that using the mouse and keyboard seems to be the best approach. The game doesn't really do well with the controller, and I think that's just due to the age of the game. It also might be because that was how I got familiar with the game. I played it with the mouse and keyboard the whole way through, and even though I swore and was quite upset at the game early on, I eventually got used to the controls. But yeah, people who haven't played this game and have played games like Dark Souls and games where it's a bit more precise may find themselves a bit frustrated. There's a number of different secrets in the level, and you want to try and have a look around. You can see here, the Barbarian doesn't really use a shield, but we'll take it. The early game, you probably find yourself using other weapons, at least until you can find all the good ones yourself. Okay. So we've been that way. Here we go. We walked right past it. Sneak in the window, climbing in your window, snatching your people up. And you can see that my defense is going up. With each level we get more defense, we can take more damage, but of course enemies are going to get tougher. To offset that, we're going to meet more dangerous enemies. The undead also are going to get more dangerous. We're going to meet vampires, demons, and at the moment we're going to have to contend with skeletons. Now skeletons are a rather dangerous enemy for a barbarian, because the barbarian uses a sword, and these skeletons obviously have no skin to cut. Now it can hurt him somewhat, but what we're going to want to get our hands on is a blunt weapon. And that's going to be a mace. Oh, and speaking of which, we can take this guy out, we can take his mace. Now we can hurt him with the sword, it's a lot more efficient with a blunt weapon. Excellent. So now we've got a blunt weapon. The blunt weapon's going to do a lot of damage. Any undead enemy, any skeleton, and also blunt weapons do fantastic jobs of destroying shields, but they're not that effective against a zombie. As you can see, it's going to take several hits to take him down. Certain enemies are weak against certain weapons. And I like that this game has so many features, so many things in it that you wouldn't think twice now, but 20 years ago it was absolutely unheard of. Location-based damage. You've got combo attacks, different weapons, the ability to use blocking and parrying, all that stuff. It's something that games like Dark Souls and Elden Ring would standardize, but it just wasn't. It wasn't a thing at the time. As you can see, a couple of hits with the right weapon, these guys are gone. Now this game is, at the time when it came out, I got it at a flea market, and it was unheard of. No one had heard about it. It wasn't in any of the gaming magazines, and as you know, we didn't have YouTubers and internet reviews to tell people about the game. So it really was an underrated gem, and that's why when I saw it on the Steam store and I saw the flood of reviews from people saying how much they liked the game, it was really refreshing, because I thought that, you know, I was one of the few people that played the game. Now, the controls, as you can tell, controls are a little janky, more than a little janky, and you're going to struggle with it in the early game, but it's really worth sticking with, because it is a fantastic game, and it's got a lot of replay value too, with the 4 different character classes, and they all play differently. They use different weapons, they have completely different skills, special skills, and it is really worth playing through with all of them. And it's worth seeing things, little things, like you probably noticed the Barbarian at the moment, he has damage on his body. Not only is there locational based damage for enemies, there's locational based damage for you. Oh, yeah, and that locational based damage will kill me. Traps in the game, instant death. We need to be very, very careful of those. And the game's hard too. I remember watching my dad try and play this, and it's no joke trying to finish it. I mean, I'm doing all right now, but that's just because I have a little bit of experience with the game. Excellent. We've got I think we've got too many weapons, so I'm going to get rid of this Gladius. Sorry. Now we're talking. Now, some people like a hand axe. This is the Barbarians. Whoa! Okay, run, 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 run. Whew. As I was saying, this is the Barbarians' version of the axe. It's the Eclipse. And it is an absolute powerhouse of a weapon. It will cut through shields, it will cut through armor, it will cut through people. This thing is fantastic. The only problem is it has a massive wind-up. You know, I think I'm using the wrong weapon for this, but the process of changing weapons in the game is quite... Oh, look at that. Home run, just took his head off. As you can see, zombies absolutely destroyed by this thing. It's essentially a giant chakram sitting on a stick. And I think that's one of the other things I like about this game. The weapons are very innovative. I would say there'd be at least 100 weapons in the game. And you've got maces, you've got battle axes, you've got hand axes, you've got maces, flails, at least 20 different types of sword. There's everything in this game. Speaking of weapons, we're going to have to get something that's suited to smashing a skeleton head. Whoa, oh no, oh no, oh yeah. So yeah, that's the lock-on system for you. So I got caught in the lock-on system, unfortunately. I tried to run away, but I was already locked on and wouldn't let me do it. These guys doing my job for me. Oh, okay, I'm taking a bit of damage here. Let's play a little bit more strategically, I think. This is what happens when you get overconfident. There we go. Now the good thing about the mace too, blunt weapons, fantastic against shields. So we're on the home stretch now. I'm in pretty bad shape. That battle I didn't do as well as what I would hope. Let's get our trusty Chaos Sword out. Time to do a little bit of home surgery. As you can see, The right weapon against the right enemy. The right tool for the right job. One hit. So we're carved through most of the enemies with very little trouble, and we have reached the end of the first level.
Hear me, O son, and learn my wisdom. Since the dawn of time, the shadow of evil has lain in wait. Down through the ages his power has grown. Only the light of the righteous can resist it. Be valiant, have faith, and persevere. Seek the Isle of the Dead. Find the Temple of Light, and enter the gate of Valaskaif. There you shall find your answers. You have cleansed Kashgar, but for how long? The spirit of your ancestors spoke of a grave evil, which is surely the source of the troubles back home. You must continue to search for answers on the Island of the Dead, in the Temple of the Goddess, and at the gate of Valaskaif. Perhaps you will find assistance from the walls deep beneath Mount Playable, or the valiant knights of Tel.
And that was the end of the first level of Blade of Darkness. Now, I really love this game. I have a lot of nostalgia in it. I remember playing it a long time ago, and I love how a lot of these forgotten classics are being remastered on Steam. I understand a lot of people who aren't into these type of games or are playing it for the first time will be put off by the controls. It does take a lot of work to get around them, but once you kind of get a feel for the game, you can understand how games like Dark Souls, some of the ideas came in these later games, and it really is a fantastic piece of history in my opinion. So if you would like to see more of the game, leave me a like, leave me a subscribe. I would love to do a part 2. Hell, I would love to play through the whole campaign. And if you'd like to see that, let me know. Hopefully you'll join me next time when we play another indie game. Until then, Skill Incarnate, out.